So the way this started was Overbrook, Will's production company, got in touch with me. I guess they knew me from the Book of Eli, and it was a one-line idea. It was something as simple as a father and a son crash land on Earth 1,000 years after it's been abandoned by humankind. And I thought that was a really cool log line for a movie. And obviously, any opportunity to work with Will, I wasn't going to pass that up either. So I got to work on fleshing out the idea and went and pitched him, and Will hired me. I kind of became employee #1 on the movie, which is very cool. And the way this all started, I learned, was that Will and his brother-in-law, Caleb, who's here today, who's head of creative at Overbrook, was sitting around watching one of those I Shouldn't Be Alive type TV shows. I don't know if you've seen these shows, but it's like survivors of car wrecks and train accidents and mountaineering disasters, talking about how they survived those experiences and how those experiences changed them. And what I discovered that was really interesting is when they first cooked this idea for a movie up, it wasn't a sci-fi movie at all. Will wanted to do a very simple movie about a father and a son who crashed their car while they were driving in the mountains somewhere in a remote region, and the son had to go get rescued for the father. And what I loved about that was that I feel really strongly that even when you're doing a big sci-fi movie like this, the movie has to work on a human emotional level first. You cannot rely on just the trappings of the science fiction premise or the high concept gimmick. It has to be a human emotional story that stands on its own. And they had that. They had a story about a father and son crashed in the mountains, and it was only subsequently that Will came up with the idea of putting this 1,000 years into the future. So the budget went up a little bit. But it remained a story about a father and a son, a very human story. In the absence of humans for 1,000 years, nature has really kind of gone to another place. It's evolved. It's almost kind of devolved to a kind of a primordial place. Whereas they said in the little reel there, it's really become the most hostile place for humans in the universe. The idea being that we were evicted by nature 1,000 years ago because we were just no longer welcome there. We were kind of messing up the planet with everything we were doing, and Earth said, enough, leave, you gotta go. And 1,000 years later, Earth has built up all these defense mechanisms around it to ensure that we can never come back. So when they crash land on the planet, you can't breathe the air, you can't drink the water, the plants will kill you, the animals will kill you, every single thing on this planet will kill you. And so Jaden has a pretty interesting journey through this movie, just trying to stay alive. At the beginning of the movie, we see Jaden is kind of going through his training at the Ranger Military Academy, and part of that training is he has to pass an oral exam on the history of his people in the last 1,000 years. And so as he's kind of answering questions about the history of his people and the exodus from Earth, we're also educating the audience about everything that happened.
Do they meet a group at, do they meet other people when they kind of crash land at Earth or something?
In early versions of the script, we did have that. There was a very, very early version of the script where the idea was that Earth, even though it had been abandoned, was now kind of a paradise for treasure hunters and people that would kind of reclaim all the lost treasures that we had left behind. And there was, at one point, Jaden was being chased around by, treasure hunters. But Will felt very strongly that the planet should be completely abandoned, and Jaden and Will should be the only two people on the planet. And so that's what we stuck with, although as I don't want to talk too much, I don't want to give too much away, but that new weapon that the Skrull come up with, through the magic of screenwriting, somehow ends up on the planet with Will and Jaden ends up having to, as well as the plants and the air and all the animals, the evolved creatures of the earth that are constantly trying to kill him. There's one additional threat that's kind of hunting him through the whole movie, which is basically this creature that is genetically designed to do nothing but hunt and kill humans. And Jaden is going to obviously have to at some point fight that thing.
So it's man against nature and technology on the
planet. Very much so. It's kind of like, the way I describe it is like if you basically took Jurassic Park and then dumped King Kong into the middle of it, that's kind of what you have in this environment.